Right, welcome out. Here we have another list in our list of lists on college. This is preparing for an A on college tests. As it states here, these are the big moments, the make or break moments, and understanding how to prepare for tests and papers, which will be covered later, so that you max out your potential is key to college success. All right. So I've got 10 pretty solid points here. Again, I'm covering main issues and concerns. I'm not going to hit all of them. And my opinion or background or experience or perspective may differ from others. But nevertheless, this is based in 25 years of extensive hands-on experience. Also a lot of research and reading and contemplating and reflecting and writing and understanding, okay? So all of that being said, let's begin. Do your reconnaissance work. Do this on day one, or better yet, before the semester begins, if you have access to a syllabus and a professor's email. Knowing the lay of the land for tests, how they work, is what's going to make or break your semester. The rest of your insights will come during the lectures, okay? So what you can do is take a look at the syllabus, try to get a feel for what the approach to the class is via the syllabus. Sometimes professors will hand out the syllabus a few days or maybe a week even before the class begins. You know, the sooner you start, the better. It's always good to do a little prep work even before the semester begins. And just, you know, see what you can find. You're not looking for anything particular, but take a look at the syllabus, take a look at the assignments, take a look at the textbooks, buy the textbooks, you know, examine the textbooks in regards to the assignments and the tests and so forth. And, you know, if you have any questions, and again, this is even before the semester starts, and if the professor is up to it or willing to communicate before the semester begins, I know I've been communicated to by students and I've responded. Maybe you can ask them some questions about testing and papers, okay? We're just talking about tests today. We'll talk about essays in the coming weeks. Number two, prepare at least a week beforehand. Don't cram. You may miraculously do well in the test, but the point of the course in the college in general is to learn. And retention is a part of that process. Divide the test in 5 or 6 sessions. Each session should cover new material as well as checking cumulative knowledge up to that point. That way, you work the knowledge, working those synaptic nerves, reinforcing retention. This is learning, okay? Learning, the problem with cramming is, you know, you can learn how to cram, be a good cram artist, and even do well on tests. But the problem is it's not in your long-term memory. You have to work the synaptic nerves, neurons, you know, sending that knowledge and information data back and forth over the neurons into the cells, the brain cells, right? And it's about repetition. Studying is not, unless you have a photographic memory and also a brilliant mind where you can understand everything, even vague concepts quickly. But you know, it takes a process. I read a paper one time from the education department saying that in order to learn something of relative complexity, it takes at least 7 to 10 exposures, okay? Which is about right. And that's why I said, you know, you want to go over the material 5 or 6 days, work on it one day, and then the next day you add some new material to it, review the previous day's material. Then on the third day, review day 1 and 2, look at the new material on day 3, and then 4 and 5 and 6, right? That's the way, not only do you learn and put it into your long-term memory, your read-only memory, your ROM, not your RAM. RAM is memory that is used in the immediate, but you want to have that knowledge and that information locked away and stored beyond just the testing period. And also, you want to take a look at what you're learning in one chapter to the next, course to the next, how that all relates to the overarching uh, philosophy of your major and what it is that you need to learn for your major. Okay. Number three, know what you need to know. Some professors may give you the lay of the land, some may not. Ultimately, it's up to you to determine what the test covers. Tests may be a combination of the text, handouts, in-class lectures, assignments, and so forth. Get it all down so you're not wasting time and effort, right? That's why, you have to go to class, you have to pay attention in class, you have to take notes. I'm not a proponent of, taking exhaustive, extensive, detailed notes in class. Because most of what you learn will be in the texts, the handouts, but the class is really used for understanding, for comprehension, and for the student to ask questions, and for the teacher to ask questions or prompt the student or update the student about things that are going on in the class. That's why it's important to not just go to class and sit there, in the back in a comatose state on your phone, not paying attention. Right? And it's hard, I can tell you. It's difficult. It's a challenge. Maybe easy the first couple of weeks or relatively so. But by the time you get into that third month, the middle to the end of that third month, and you got another month to go, it's difficult to hang in there, to remain in an active, I call it an active passive state. Because as a student, you're sitting there in your chair and you're relatively passive. The teacher is active and they're participating, they're engaged verbally, and they're thinking, and they have to make sense, and they have to keep their brain active and functioning at high capacity in order to communicate and to teach. And being, on the receiving end, it's passive. It can be difficult to focus and concentrate and stay awake and remain engaged, So that's the challenge, I can tell you, of being a student. Number four, learn what you need to learn. Students are often more concerned with grades than with learning. Yet it is learning that will last you through the years. It is what you learn that you will use in your life and career to live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. Look at learning from the bigger picture. It maximizes your true potential to earn, learn, and grow, right? So once I understood that this is what learning is about, it's more of a systemic, has more of a systemic nature. It's not as compartmentalized as students make it out to be, where you're just taking a course, or you can narrow it down to a test or a quiz or a paper, and you're trying to get a good grade, and then you get that and you move on and just forget everything, Forget what you learned, forget what's coming up, forget the connection, forget the course, at least temporarily. It's really about, once you have a better perspective on things, and you really have what is it now that I'm looking for, the one I'm looking for, kind of, systemic overview look at what you're learning. How does it apply to what I'm learning, to the course, for sure? But how does each course apply to my curriculum, to my major, to what I'm learning? And then how does it apply not only to career and making money, but maybe living a better life, being able to make better decisions morally, ethically, logically, critical thinking, very important tool or skill, I should say, to utilize in life, right? So it's a full package. It's the whole package, right? And you're really shortchanging yourself in your education if you're not looking at it from that perspective. If you're looking at it from a very utilitarian perspective, where I'm just getting some letter grades, my rewards, for these courses, and if I get enough good grades, A's and maybe a few B's, then my overall cum will look great, and I'll be able to get that job and afford a nice house and beer for the weekend, But there's a lot more to it than that. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. That stuff will sustain you, but that stuff will not fulfill you. And the fulfilling aspect of education and learning and living is about purpose, having a greater purpose, right? Time and time again, you hear about people who have become highly successful, famous, and not so famous. And they get to a point and say, well, you know what? I'm making a lot of money. Uh, all I seem to be having now is a lot of aggravation and material stuff. I really don't have a really good feeling, a sense of being, right? So that might be something to think about as you're moving forward. Number 5, how about those questions? What does your professor use? These are questions on the tests. Does he use multiple choice questions, short answer, short essay, or a combination of question types? Usually, if the questions are multiple choice, it's more about terminology and definitions. Essay and short answer usually require a better overview of the issues and concerns on the test. Yeah, so the thing that teachers are trying to see when you're writing, even short response answers on a test maybe, but more so in the essay. Do you really understand the overall picture from a you know the aggregate, the macro perspective? And then the test, the multiple choice part of the test, that's really, definitions, dates and numbers and formulas. Do you know these things, these tools that you can use in manipulating and understanding and utilizing the bigger or larger concepts of what the course and the curriculum are about, right? All right, how about those questions? We did that one. 7, get that bigger picture overview, as I was saying. Often tests are not just about remembering facts, numbers, data, and formulas, about being able to express the main point of a chapter or chapters via short answers or short essay responses. The teachers want to see if you're comprehending the bigger picture, as I said. Sure, it's about understanding that chapter, but also how that chapter relates to the whole course, even to your major and beyond. Number 8, work it out in your mind, a dry run through. Some professors may suggest that you write up a mock test with varying sections of question types, then contact your professor to go over the mock test after you've finished it, responding to the answers. This is way too time consuming and I would advise against it. However, going over key terms and definitions, formulas, data, main points and issues, depending on the subject matter, is advisable. I've heard the suggestion that, you should write up a mock test. Well, I know that the professor's going to have some short answer, an essay on there, but mostly multiple choice. And I'll put together a mock test for myself based on the chapter's main points. And then after I do that, I'll fill out the test and get the answers and, maybe contact my professor and we'll go over it together. That's very time consuming. I'm not sure if, I could imagine, many students, most students will not even come close to going out of their way to do that, to do this, I should say. That's probably less than 1% of all students would even think about doing something like this, right? It's a nice idea, but it's time consuming. You only have so much time. And nowadays, most students are working, if not full-time, part-time. 60 to 70% are working part-time at least. And I was going to school full-time and working full-time. I didn't have additional time to do something like that. If you're of the very few who have lots of time and you've got lots of money, I guess, to sustain you while you're in college, then, give it a shot. Sometimes your teacher or TA may hold a review session, but don't leave that as your only option. One way to help yourself and others at the same time is to get together with other classmates. And I haven't heard this one mentioned too often, but it's a good idea. You can take turns asking questions from the text. Often there are many text questions, already written in the back of each chapter. All right. So that's another way of running the knowledge again through the synaptic nerves, right? And you're reinforcing again that knowledge and hopefully getting it into the cells, the neurons, Um, so it is about repetition, repetition, repetition. And this way you're really learning something. Research has been done on whether or not students are learning in college. In the first couple of years, almost no learning is going on, which is understandable because those are the elective years where a lot of students are taking classes that are not a part of their major. They didn't ask to take them. They're not interested, whatever, right? But even, the third and fourth years where the majority of the major, the courses are really, really come home and bring it all together, you've learned your foundational fundamental stuff. Now you're getting into the deeper, more detailed, specific aspects of the knowledge for your major, right? Even their retention or learning is hampered. And it's mostly because of the fact that that's not a goal. You have to have a goal of learning, of retaining, of retention, of looking at things from the macro perspective, the bigger picture, systemic, taking a look at each course and what does each course modularly give you. And then you put all these modules together and you kind of link them up. And what does that all do when they're all linked up and they're all working together, right? What am I actually learning here? What is the point? Avoid all-nighters, use a day to rest. Remember I said, begin studying for a test a week before. I said, take 5 or 6 days to do so. That 7th day should be a day of rest. It is a major component of doing well on a test. A tired mind is not a very productive mind. It has a more difficult time recalling, processing, pondering. Maybe you can go grab a bite with your study group and make it a fun day at the same time. Relaxed was way better than stressed when you're going into the test. And I remember when I went back to college, I was probably in my early 30s, I was 32, 33, return student, as they call them, not older student. And I remember that I studied the first test I took. I studied for it so much. I was so geared up that I went in and probably finished the test in like 15 minutes. And everybody else is taking like 45, 50 minutes. And I thought, geez, I'm not gonna do well. Did I do that right? Did I miss something? Did I go too fast? And I did I think I got an A in the test. But then I realized I was just too hyped up. I had to take it back because it's not a sprint, 4 years. It's a marathon. So you're gonna burn yourself out. So don't burn yourself out. That's key. Anyways, that's it for now. We will see you the next time for the next list. Take care.